So last night I did a video with the title Demonize the Disabled on the Way to Assisted Suicide. And I left a link to this. And even in the video I said, I haven't even watched this, but I know where this is going. Seriously. But I did watch it later. And yeah. I could have done it in the vid, but oh no. Let's just go through this. Definitely. Now, remember, I haven't watched TV other than being in friends' houses where it's on in the background. But I've never watched TV for over a quarter of a century now. At least that, I think. And not a regret, by the way. Not a regret. But so I don't know if this is BBC Scotland or STV. It could be one or the other. It's probably STB. I've no idea. I've no idea who this individual is. Although I suspect he's been in what he's been doing for quite a while. And I even look at the background, the foreground, his suits. There's a sort of casual aspect about it. It leans to, we're in more warmer temperatures just now, and so it's quite a light suit, etc. And it's more like he was out for a beer of an afternoon. You know, he's got the vibe is what I'm seeing on this. But, you know, hey, that's only my thoughts on this. But under fair use and stopping occasionally, and I would argue for good reason, let's do this. So, Liam MacArthur on Scottish Assisted Suicide Bill.
As I said, this coming Tuesday, MSPs are going to be asked to vote on whether a new law should be introduced in Scotland to allow some terminally ill people...
Some terminally ill people. Well, that'll be to start with.
...to receive help in ending their life.
Help. The wording is not a mistake. Help.
It's just the first stage of the bill.
You can trust this guy. He's doing the eye contact thing, and you can trust him. It's like a shady car salesman, but, you know, some effort's been made here. You can trust this guy, apparently. You can trust him.
No final decisions being made this week, but it is a big moment, and it's certainly a big question. Perhaps, also, hopefully...
Think about the wording of this. Hopefully.
Those times when our Parliament's seen at its best.
Seen at its best. This is not a guy that's against this, is it? You know, let's do this again. I suspect this will be a longer video, but bear with me. Look at this.
This coming Tuesday, MSPs are going to be asked to vote on whether a new law should be introduced in Scotland to allow some terminally ill people to receive help in ending...
Look at the wording and the emphasis on certain wording. Honestly, this guy's a propagandist. He's a player in that, that's for sure.
To be asked to vote on whether a new law should be introduced in Scotland to allow some terminally ill people...
He's talking to you. Look at him. He's got the most honest face. This is a one-to-one, just you and him.
...to receive help in ending their lives. It's just the first stage of the bill. No final decisions being made this week, but it is a big moment, and it's certainly a big question. Perhaps, also, hopefully, one of those times when our Parliament's seen at its best. Respectful...
I mean, how the fuck is that not, like... propaganda on steroids? I mean, you're supposed to be impartial. This guy is smoothing the way to this, yeah? But you can trust this guy.
And consider it as it should be. Liam
Consider it as it should be.
MacArthur, the Lib Dem MSP, brought the bill forward. And he joins me now, I'm pleased to say. Good morning.
This is a guy who I would say is ball deep in the new age. He's one of many who, you know, there's no... real empathy and all the rest of it. They discard any feelings of stress or you know, this, you know, it's I would say, yeah, another socio-psychopathic, you know, hey, look, we need to do this, you know, for Guy and Mother Earth, seriously. But remember, look at, let's face it, Wiki's not exactly the best of data, especially when it comes to him. I'd love to know more about his folks. I'd love to know about his family background and all the rest of it, but no, you're not going to hear this, but you're not going to see any of that. But he has an interest, you know, you can just tell he's a globalist. You can absolutely tell. And he was an associate director between 96 and 2002 an independent global public affairs and strategic communications consultancy. Well, it's kind of handy things you find with many politicians, yeah, and what they've been involved in. He is a globalist, I would say. I'll also say there's a good chance he's an occultist. What part of the occult he's in, I have no idea. But it's just look at this.
Good morning, Martin.
I'm seeing on the front page of the Herald on Sunday today, you are apparently pretty confident that you've got the numbers to get this through. Is that right?
Yeah, because unfortunately, most people haven't worked this out. Doesn't matter if it's Conservative, Labour, SNP, whatever pish party, blah, blah, blah. Behind the scenes, they got the same lodges. They're part of the same networks. They are but well-paid actors and actresses. And they're so good that you'll never realise that that's what they're paid to do. I mean, they haven't got an original thought themselves. That's dealt with between the think tanks and the handlers and them. Yeah? Look at this guy. You can trust him.
I think I've long felt that the political mood in this...
So, he shrugs off any kind of sort of emotional care, all the rest. I'm done with all that. Look, it's things that we need to do, while still masquerading as a good guy.
This Parliament had changed radically from the last time Parliament voted on this back in 2015.
The body language and everything. He's to make you relax. Look, he's just a genuine guy. He's thought this through.
15, I think there's been a mood shift.
Since 2015, there's a mood shift. Yeah, his career has been involved in changing perceptions of people. Yeah.
That has brought parliamentarians probably more in line with where the
underling occultist puppets.
Public has been for at least a couple of decades now, where there's been overwhelming support for a change in the law. Many of those colleagues actually come to this issue with their own experience of having lost a family member, a close friend, to a bad death, and I think that's...
A bad death. What is a bad death? I'll tell you one thing, right? Even when and remember, that's one thing about being an occultist and having family members who are occultists as well. They really are a bit like lizard mindset in the sense that, there's not a lot of empathy and whatever else. And, just say, for example, you've got the wherewithal to send your mum or dad to a care home. Have you any idea what these private care homes cost? Yeah. So even if you say you had $1 million, yeah, in many care homes, that's about 10 years residency. Seriously, no jokes. Yeah. Now, if you're younger occultists in that family, and I know what I would rather spend on. If your inheritance is being burnt up in front of you, yeah, then many, I would argue, of these occultists, even when it comes to their parents, like, yeah, I'd rather you didn't do that. I'd rather I got that. Yeah, seriously, there's a socio-psychopathic theme within many occultists. I wouldn't want to be them. Like, seriously, I mean, many of them live well and all the rest of it, but morally, holy shit. Yeah, you could go into the detail, but be assured over time, care homes will not be such of a thing, I suspect, yeah, on the long term. Well, I think they externalised that in the 70s with Logan's Run. Let's just let them shag themselves to oblivion till they're about 30 and then just say they're going on to a higher plane of existence while bumping them off. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the long-term plans. But in between all that, well, let's carry on.
Framed this issue for them, but I think there's others...
Framed, yeah, because it's all about reframing.
Who are looking at the changes we're seeing in states and countries.
Look at the body language. You can trust this man. Another one you can trust. He's better than bloody presenter as a bullshitter. Yeah.
around the world, seeing assisted dialogues of the type I'm proposing implemented safely.
And seriously, look at his background. Look at his career timeline. It does speak volumes. Like, he's but one of many that, well, have a very different view of the rest of us.
Successfully, that continue to command strong public support and confidence within the medical community that's asked to oversee it and apply that process. And I think
that process,
drawing confidence from that, I think the vote will be tight. It'll be close on Tuesday.
Yeah, look, it's all puppetry. It's all sorted in advance. And it possibly will be quite tight, but it will absolutely go through. But it gives the illusion, look, a lot of people were unhappy about it, but we'll see where this goes and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, for the vast majority, Netflix.
Tuesday, but I think the point that was made there about Parliament at its best, I'm confident that too will come through in the debate. All the discussions I've had with MSP colleagues across the parties over the last probably 4 years of taking forward this bill, those have always been respectful, they've been measured, they've been considered, irrespective of colleagues.
Now, think about it in the business model, right? Pensioners especially, they're not an asset, they're a liability. Yeah, that's their view. Yeah, that they're a cost, not a benefit. Unless, of course, you're ultra wealthy, especially in the occult, and the last thing you want to be doing is, exposing yourself to the NHS and other things. So you've got this planned well in advance. But for everybody else,
views on this issue, and I'm pretty sure that will be borne out by the debate on Tuesday.
Yeah, everybody seems to agree on that. Can you just...
Everybody seems to agree on that. There's no pushback on this. There's none.
Briefly, if you can, just talk us through how this would work. And
how this would work. We are talking about the systematic death of an awful lot of people over time here. Well, masquerading as Care Bears. But most people will just not get it.
Actually, who would be eligible for an assisted death?
Yeah, so there are no two assisted dying laws anywhere in the world, and that are the same. But there is.
I don't know. If you actually look, there is a running theme. Seriously. Initially, cancer or some severe, really, they're not long to live, but they're in abject pain. And that gets expanded to, oh, you're depressed, oh, you're this, oh, you're that. Hey, maybe it's better for you, after all.
Those two broad models, a more permissive model we've seen in the Benelux countries, in Netherlands and Belgium. And
seriously, you should look over there. They've literally suicided people that were just depressed, that just needed somebody to sit down with them, etc., and a bit more effort. There is so many things wrong with this.
More recently in Canada.
Yeah, as I said in the vid last night, without even watching this.
And then a terminal illness mental capacity model that was first introduced.
Terminal illness mental capacity.
In Oregon in the late 1990s. Had been rolled out in different states in the US and more recently across the different states in Australia and New Zealand. And my bill very much kind of replicates.
My bill. He's just a puppet. This has been replicated across the world. Yeah, seriously. The apathy is astounding.
So eligibility would be based on having an advanced progressive terminal illness and the capacity to take the decision. That diagnosis would need to be made by two doctors active. Initially,
remember, we heard all this in the UK, and then they were also saying, well, actually what they were trying to get through was, well, instead of two doctors, just one, and then it gets diluted down the line.
Independently.
Of course, you could trust them. They're independent. But if behind the scenes they have the same belief system, are they independent? No, they're not. They're an interconnected death cult. In every metric you look at, these people are not looking after our interests. Not at all.
Also have to make the individual aware of all the treatment choices available.
The treatment, remember, treatment.
To make sure that the decision itself was an informed one. The discussion would have to, I I think, get to the rationale for why the request to be made in the first instance. I think recognising there's a need to ensure that no undue pressure or coercion has been brought.
No undue pressure. Who defines that? And what is that really? Think about this.
To bear. There'd be a wait period of 14 days.
Yeah, you'd think months. No. A wait period of 14 days. 14 days. Yeah, and they'll probably shrink that over time. 14 days. That's just 2 weeks. That's half a fucking month.
Days between when the application is made by the patient and any medication being provided.
Any medication? Yeah, what? When they were put down? Seriously. The glossing over the words.
Coercion's been brought to bear. There'd be a wait period of 14 days.
He's still moving about with that casual, just, taking any tension out of his shoulders. This is anyway.
When the application is made by the patient and any
I reckon he's got handlers. He's another one. Yeah.
Medication being provided. That medication would be provided by a
This is the thing about these socio-psychopathic loons. So many of them are into spirituality and all the rest of it, and they just cast aside any concerns or, well, apparently any kind of moral compass, really.
Professional who would again have to satisfy themselves of capacity and intent, and the medication itself would be
the medication, remember, it's quite literally poison. Whatever they're giving them is to kill them. Any medication. Are you honestly
administered? And it's probably worth also pointing out that there'd be no requirement for this to happen within that, or straight after those 14 days. I think what we
just think of many in Canada. They were literally, I can no longer afford my rent. Have you thought about, assisted dying? Seriously. Numbers of them.
See in other jurisdictions is individuals with an advanced terminal illness going through that process, being found to be eligible. And then,
hey, everybody wants to be eligible, don't they? It's all about the wording here.
And using it in a sense as a kind of insurance policy that if things get too much, they know that this option remains available, allowing them to get.
It just sort of keeps that body movement, with a shoulder shrug. Look, this is just about, would you like a toasty? It's that kind of casual, seriously.
On with living the rest of their life. And I think, again, consistently across those jurisdictions, we see around a third of those that make an application for an assisted death don't ultimately end up using it because they find that the palliative and other...
they find that, getting bumped off other ways, but with a smile and a wee bit longer. Hospices, honestly. Oh, when you look at so much data, and honest, you find that people, when they wake up, even in a hospice, in the sense that, somebody who's cared about them that has a wee bit more data, says, listen, just do me a wee favour, even while you're in here, just take these. And they've felt better about X, Y, and Z. And all of a sudden, they've got more of a will to live. And there's been cases where they just, hey, actually, I'll head home. Don't need to be in the hospice. I'm not saying it's a huge percent, but some people start working out, hey, maybe if I start looking at other options for my health, the outcome may not be as bad as I've been sold.
Care that's been provided to them meets their needs. So, as I say, this is a model that we see working very...
A model.
Safely, very successfully with robust safeguards.
You can trust him. Robust safeguards.
Place, oversight, data gathering. But based on eugenics, I would argue. And reporting taking place. And I'm confident that Scotland can develop a system along those lines that meets our needs and circumstances, but also meets the needs of dying Scots who are being let down, being failed by the current ban on assisted dying here in Scotland.
They've been let down. They've been failed. When we can just bump them off with a smile.
In numbers, the parameters there are quite broad. And
there's no, like, have we thought this through? None of that from him.
advanced and progressive disease, illness, or condition from which they are unable to recover and can reasonably expect it to cause their premature death. I've heard you in the past say that in the first couple of years, you reckon 30-odd people in Scotland might choose to end their lives through this. It'll take 20 years to get us up to maybe 400 people.
And these are rookie numbers. Anyway.
Yet in Canada, 4% of deaths are assisted. Why do you think we would be so different?
Well, I think it's important to draw a distinction, as I said earlier, between the model of assisted dying in place in Canada, which is far more expansive in terms of its eligibility criteria.
But that's the concern, isn't it? It starts like your bill and ends up through the courts and whatever in years to come.
And remember, in the Scottish Parliament, whatever works as regards eugenics around the world, they really want to up those numbers over time. Be assured of that. I could have played the rest of it, but I'll leave you the link to it. But do you get the picture? Seriously, you've got to start looking at these people as a cultist. There's this interconnected belief system, which they're ultimately a death cult. Unless you're a hardcore occultist, you're surplus to requirements. This is about the transition, transformational change, yeah? This is ball deep in the occult. And, we're dealing with, evil. There's no other way to look at it. Your thoughts, and I'll speak to you soon.